to Steel City Live here on Mike Drop Sports. We got a special guest today, Brian Hanley from Steelers Almighty. What's up, Brian? How are you, man?
I am doing good, man. How are you doing? Glad to be here again.
Doing well, man. Thank you for joining us as always. Great to have you. We're going to talk a lot of draft stuff tonight, guys. We're going to dive into what the Steelers can do to improve this football team, with some realistic options again on drafting somebody, bringing somebody in that can make an immediate impact. So we're going to dive into all that. Super chats are always open. Memberships are open. You guys can hit that up if you choose to. But again, make sure you're putting comments, questions, and concerns inside of the chat. But we're going to dive into this draft stuff, guys. I want to start, Brian, with this draft, just previewing a little bit of what the Steelers could expect in the first round. Maybe who could fall, who couldn't fall. Where do you think the Steelers have the most interest after you hear what they've been talking about with in terms of interviews and things of that nature, bringing players in? Where do you think their big interest lies here in the first round of this draft?
Well, I still think their interest lies with defensive tackle. I still think that's where, their main interest is at. Now, having said all of that, obviously nobody can be a draft predictor because you have no idea what teams are going to do. Things move and shake all the time. So, obviously when things get lined up, it could be different. But saying all that, if things don't go the way that the Steelers want, which I'll predict. It's like a lot of people are talking about Kenneth Grant. I love Kenneth Grant. I think he'd be outstanding for the Steelers. The problem is, I just don't think he's going to be there at 21.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I don't think he's going to be around at 21. So if he's not, Derek Harmon, another one. Maybe he's around, maybe he's not. I like it. But if those two guys aren't there, then it's like, okay, well, now what do you do?
Yeah.
Cornerback, obviously, but corner. How many corners are going to be first round at 21 still available? That's number one.
Right.
And you could always reach for a guy, but when you start reaching at 21, that's where you get in trouble. There's no reason to reach. So I think D tackle, but then the next thing is, Jason, running back. And although it is absolutely 100% against everything I believe in, drafting a running back early, I mean, maybe you do. I think you go someplace else. I think you go other options in running back because there's so many good ones in this draft. There's going to be 25 running backs drafted in this draft. I think you can go later.
I agree. I think you could get that in the fourth round, maybe even. And when you were talking about defensive linemen, defensive tackles, guys that could be some run stuffers up front. Derek Harmon, he's a 300-pounder, out of Oregon. Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. He's another guy that's like 327, 6'3". But there was a guy that I was looking at that's from Texas, Alfred Collins. I don't know if you had seen him, 320, 6'5". I feel like he's a little slow with his first step, maybe could work into maybe getting a little bit better at that. But are there some sleeper picks maybe like an Alfred Collins from Texas or somebody like that that's a big body guy to get in there and get in the middle and really play a true nose tackle type position, maybe that you have your eye on? I feel like, again, mine's like an Alfred Collins, somebody that you could get maybe later in the draft if need be. But is there anybody you particularly are seeing that maybe somebody might be overlooking?
No, I definitely like Alfred Collins. I don't think you take him at 21, but I like Alfred Collins. Another guy, now, again, we don't have a second-round pick, or, hey, we had a second-round pick. It just happened to be DK Metcalf, is Deion Walker. Now, a lot of people out of Kentucky, a lot of people don't like his senior year tape. And it seemed to me like his senior year, he came back because, hey, I'm not going to be a first-round pick. I don't know. I make a lot of money in NIL. And it looked like he was playing to not get hurt. But if you turn on his junior year tape, he's a different football player. Absolutely. You couldn't block him. You couldn't move him. He was a menace. I think if you turn on his junior year tape, okay, and then you try to figure out, okay, now what's the difference? Was he really not playing as hard because he didn't want to get hurt? Is that the case? Hey, the team's not any good where they were the year before. This past year, senior year, because their quarterback play was absolutely atrocious and their offensive line was a mess. We're not winning any games, so he checked out. I don't know. But I still Deion Walker's a talent. He's
Right.
sliding down the board. I get it, but I don't know that he'll slide to the third round. But that's a guy that I have my eye on.
Yeah, and again, I think that there are some deep positions here, though. You're talking defensive line, I think, is a deep position. Cornerback's a deep position, I think so. I think you can get some value later in the draft. Running back, like you said, there's probably going to be a gazillion guys that are drafted there. So, yeah, I feel like Steelers could find somebody here at 21, hopefully that meets a position of need because of these deep draft classes, but draft positions. But man, finding the value deeper later in the draft, that's going to be, I think, the key for the Steelers here because, like you said, no second round pick. Do you think
Right.
there is a way that the Steelers can find that second round pick to maybe take some of the pressure off of getting that first round pick spot on right? It's got to be a slam dunk because you don't have that number two. Is there a way in your eyes, other than trading George Pickens, that they can find a way to get back into the second round? Or is that just strictly somewhere where you got to trade George Pickens to maybe get that second round pick back?
I mean, well, twofold there is number one, they could get back because they could always trade back.
Mm-hmm.
At 21, you could trade back, and depending on how far you go, you could possibly get a second round pick. All the draft matrix and things that you look at, if they went back to 28, 28 warrants you getting a second round pick going from
Mm-hmm.
21 to 28. So there's a way that they could go there and trading somebody. I mean, everybody talks about Pickens. I'm just not high on trading George Pickens right now. I,
Yeah.
I want to see him and Metcalf together. But either way, I whether you have a second round pick or not, you could have 10 second round picks. I don't want to miss on the first. I
No.
mean, there's no, I don't give them leeway, and you shouldn't give yourself leeway. Hey, we got 4 second round picks, so we don't have to hit on the first. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. Yeah, you absolutely do. You don't want to miss on any pick. Obviously, we know that's going to happen, but
Mhm.
just because you have a second rounder, yeah, I'm not, you don't just, okay, we got a second rounder. We don't necessarily have to hit on this guy. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Amen. Amen, man. And I feel like that this draft though is filled with enough talent that you can find somebody, and I feel like the draft board is going to dictate what you do. You don't necessarily have to have a specific plan, but you got to see the ebbs and the flows of that draft board and how these position runs and things going. I think that's going to play a big role into that. So sticking with that first round pick, sticking where the Steelers could go, if somebody maybe falls at, just say, the safety position, just say a
Mhm.
cornerback falls, are you willing to do one of those types of positions if you're the Steelers, or do you gotta stick to the trenches, or do you gotta stick to a quarterback? You had Shador Sanders come in for a visit, and we'll talk about that in a second. But do you gotta stick to those big time positions, or do you just stick to best player available? And if that guy's on the board, I don't care if you got a Minka or a TJ or anybody in front of them, you just take them there.
I there's no way I would take a safety in the first round. I know people are talking about the Nick, I think
Eh,
Amanamori
I
out of
never say
South
his name right.
Carolina.
Yeah.
I think people are trying to talk themselves into that. Look, I'm not saying that Mika is the greatest safety, and I know Deshaun Elliott's deal is up. He's only under contract for 1 more year, but I feel
Hmm.
like if he plays well, the Steelers are going to re-sign him to something.
Yeah.
You can always restructure Mika or whatever you want to do. I'm not saying you go that route, but in the grand scheme of things, when you're building a football team, safety is way
Hmm.
down the line as far as the importance. I'm not saying they're not important, but there is a multitude of positions that are more important than safety on the football team. So I wouldn't do that. Corner is something. The problem is at 21 is like how many guys are at a value of 21? There might be 3 in this draft that go in the first round this year as far as a cornerback that high. That's part of the problem here is, hey, yeah, if things don't go your way, do you go corner? I don't know. I don't know if you do. And that's the whole thing about it. Another thing is obviously, I don't like running back, but I'm not afraid to go offensive line. I say it all the
Me
time.
either.
You'd never stop investing in your offensive line. You just never stop investing in your offensive line.
No.
So, and if it comes to that, then you do it. If it comes to that, you absolutely do it.
Yeah, amen. You can't never go wrong. Offensive line got to be one of those things that it's always got to be something in your head. You got to take them. If a guy's there, you take that guy no matter what. There's value in them. People are looking for them constantly. They're looking for a tackle. They're looking for a guard. Somebody's always in the market for an offensive lineman. So no doubt about that. Let's move over to the quarterbacks a little bit. Guys, I did switch my audio up. I was using my earbuds. I switched to this headset. Hopefully that's a little bit better. But they met with Shedeur Sanders. Maybe some people don't know. This is the second meeting with Shedeur. They had a formal meeting with him at the Combine. But this is the second meeting. Maybe the Steelers are anticipating a drop of some of these quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. We know Cam Ward won't be available, but a Shedeur, a Jackson Dart, a Tyler Shuck, a Will Howard later in the draft, something like that. Are you cool with taking one of these guys? Honestly, I think Shedeur is a guy I would take, but I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah, I would take Shedeur at 21 if he fell.
Yeah,
Jackson Dart, I would not. Will Howard. We've heard Jalen Milroe. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you could get some of those guys, like a third rounder for Shuck, third round for Dart, fourth round for Milroe and Howard, okay. If that's what you want to do, okay, fine. But at 21, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the people that talk about, well, I don't like Shedeur Sanders. Well, what don't you like? Well, he's brash. He brings a circus. Well, what circus are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Explain it to me. Nobody can ever give you a reason on why they don't like Shedeur Sanders. All they do is just regurgitate stuff that they've heard online, and they can never explain why they don't like him.
No, and
because
he's highly
he can do
accurate.
everything that you want.
Yeah,
he's got I'm not saying he's got a rocket arm, but he can make every throw. He's extremely smart.
Yes.
He's very, very accurate. What is it that and he anticipates throws? So what else are you looking for in your quarterback?
Right.
He's not Lamar Jackson athletically. He's not. So I get that. He doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. I get that. But if you can make every throw, what difference does it make?
Hey, man, I agree. I think he played behind a crap offensive line his whole time in college, and the kid still stood in there, threw the football in the face of pressure. He keeps his eyes down the field. He fires it when he got to. He runs it when he has to. Extremely smart. And two, I think a lot of people discount. Maybe they don't like him because of the fame and stuff, but this kid has been famous since he's been in high school playing football on TV shows. He can handle the lights. Nothing's going to be too big for him. And I think that's what you're looking for in a guy. I think it's beneficial for him. So I don't know. I think Shedeur Sanders is a guy that you take because you just don't know when you're going to get another guy like that. And maybe you sit behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that's the case. Maybe even Mason Rudolph plays in front of him for a little bit. I think it gives you options, definitely. But I really like the accuracy. I like the anticipation. And I think if you're looking for a quarterback, anticipation and being able to make all the throws, man, those are the two big things. So definitely high on him, man.
No, I'm high on him too. Like I said, if he fell, some people are saying move up. That's the only problem here is at 21. If you really think that he's the quarterback of the future, okay. But the Steelers are not just a player away. So giving up draft capital to move up to go get him, and that's a slippery slope, man. And I'm not sure that I'm willing to do that. If he falls, great. And I see some people in the chat saying they don't like him personally. I'm like, do you know him?
Yeah, I don't.
How can you not like him personally? You don't even know him. Never spoken to him, nothing. But somehow you don't like him personally. It's just weird, man. It's weird.
No doubt, man. Hey, guys, we will get to a lot of your chat comments. Super chats will get you going instantly. We'll do that. But we're going to just continue to go through some things. We will field some questions and stuff here at the end, answer some of your chat stuff. So you guys can keep putting them in there. If we see anything cool, we'll definitely get to it. But we're going to continue to talk about this draft. Again, with Shedeur, I don't know him, man. I have no clue. I think he's got it. But when you're talking about though these quarterbacks, you gotta just make the check marks. Accuracy's got to be a big thing, and a guy that can come in and play. Do any of these quarterbacks here though strike you as immediate impact players, immediate day one guys that are going to come into that franchise and they're going to make a difference from the day they get in that building? Do any of these quarterbacks inside of the 2025 draft strike you as that player?
Nope, not one of them. Not one. This is like the Baby Ann's Pickett draft, where we reached in the third or in the first round for a third round talent. This reminds me of that draft. People keep talking about Cam Ward this, Cam Ward that, and I don't disagree. I think he's a talented guy, but is he an immediate franchise changer? Yeah, I don't know about that. So I mean, so I don't think any of these guys happen to be that. But then again, Jason, here's the thing. Everybody, when they draft a quarterback in the first round, people think they have to be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Do they, though?
No.
Like, if they can come in, play good football, win you football games, isn't that good enough? Win playoff games, isn't that good enough? And who knows? Maybe you can get to a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. I don't know. But everybody that you draft or plays the position doesn't have to be a Hall of Fame talent. And I think that's what we believe, that every time you take somebody, they have to be a Hall of Famer, and it's just unrealistic expectations.
You don't need that, I don't think. I don't know what your thoughts are in this. I don't think the Steelers need anybody to come in and carry this football team. They've been a football team with major deficiencies over the last several seasons. They've still managed to make the playoffs occasionally, get in the dance. They've still managed to win 10 games. They've done things that I think are still pretty damn good. They're not horrible. So I don't think they need anybody to come in here and carry this football team. I know they're not one player away from anything, but a couple players in this draft, I don't know, I feel like could propel this team into some better things. I don't think they're that far off. I don't know. Am I blind here? I don't know. I don't think they're that far off.
No, they're not. And I mean, I don't think they're one player away, but they're not eight. They're not 8 players away. And, that's the difference. It's like, well, they're not one player away. Okay, well, how many? Well, maybe 2 or 3. Okay, well, then that's what we're talking about here. Like, they're not that far away from getting to where we want to go. But the major position is quarterback. We just don't have that quarterback. And when you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a lot. And I think that's part of the problem, is that they just don't have that. If they can find it, okay, things can change, but they're not 8, 9 players away from being able to compete. That's not how far the Steelers are. But you might as well be 8 or 9 players away if you don't have a quarterback, because it doesn't really matter.
What's your thoughts on Mason Rudolph? I like him. I think he can get hot. Do I think he's a Super Bowl winner? Probably not. That's just the way it is. But I feel like Mason Rudolph could win 10 games. I mean, I feel like he could with that team and those weapons and what there is at the disposal of a quarterback that comes to Pittsburgh, the tight end room. I feel like there are some running backs on this team that can still play really well. Jaylen Warren. I feel like, again, the tight ends, the wide receivers with the addition of DK Metcalf, and now DK and company added with George Pickens. A defense that can play. Let's face it, the Steelers are in some of these games because of what the defense did. So if you make improvements there a little bit through the draft, that could help too. But yeah, definitely, I feel like any quarterback can get it done, at least on not anybody, but most quarterbacks that are of Mason Rudolph's stature could win 10 games and I don't know, be fairly good. That's just my opinion.
I mean, obviously we do a lot of stuff on Steelers Almighty, and I've talked about Mason Rudolph. I think the Steelers will win 10 games. If he happened to be the starter, I think Steelers win 10 games with him. Yeah. Now, does that mean they'll win a playoff game? Probably not.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, is that I don't think they get a playoff win with Mason Rudolph. I don't think he's that guy, but he may surprise us all. Maybe he is. Who knows? But I think the Steelers could win. And we've seen the Steelers win with worse. So, and I think Mason, everybody's screaming, give him a chance. Well, that's fine and dandy. I get it. but the Steelers didn't go spend the money on something else. Like everybody's saying,
Right.
hey, ride with Mason, go spend the money on other places. Well, where are we going to spend it now? You know, free agency started a long time ago.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, those guys are gone. So now what are you doing? You know, it's like,
Mm,
okay, you didn't spend it, but now
right.
it's, we got Mason Rudolph and he might end up being the starter. So sometimes you just got to ride with it, man. You just got to ride with
Mhm.
it.
And they spend the money. They have to spend. They're not allowed not to spend it. They have to spend the money.
Yes.
They're spending the money somewhere. Craig Werlow says until they get a quarterback, they will be behind the Lamars, Joe Cool, and the way Tomlin wants to win 18-16, 19-17, not going to translate into playoff wins. If you look at the Steelers' record against the divisional opponents since 2020, Big B, they fared really well. The Steelers do pretty damn good, you know. They're 500 against the Bengals. They've owned the Ravens, really. I mean, last year they didn't. They went 1-2 against them, but as a whole, they played this division really well, regardless of the quarterback situation. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like the Steelers, even with Mason Rudolph, are going to be highly competitive in the division, even with the Lamars and the Joe Burrows and whoever else plays for the Browns.
Well, and now here's another thing is now we'll see what they can do if they're going to actually utilize because DK Metcalf is explosive. He,
Oh
he
yeah,
just is. He's an explosive football player. I'm not saying he's the greatest route runner, but he is definitely an explosive football player. Something that the Steelers haven't had opposite of George Pickens. You
right.
know, Deontay Johnson was good, but he wasn't explosive. He was a
Mm-mm,
route runner that got open, but he wasn't an explosive guy. So
mm-mm.
my thing about all of this is you give Mason Rudolph that, see what he can do if that's the route that they need to go, want to go, have to go, whatever the case may be, and see what happens. I just don't think you're winning playoff games with Rudolph. Can you
No,
compete in the division? Absolutely. Steelers are going to compete no matter what. But
right.
the style of winning, I've said it a million times, trying to win 17-14, playing great defense, good special teams, and make a play at the end. You can win games that way in the National Football League. You just can't win in the playoffs.
No, and it's tough. Yeah, some of that it's tough, and I feel like that's something Mike Tomlin has to adjust. And I know it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but he's got to loosen the reins a little bit and maybe
Yeah.
take a little bit of that conservative nature and push it to the side a little bit. No doubt about it. Off-season workouts, though, they start in about what 10 days here. We're like 19, 18 days away from the draft. This thing's rapidly snowballing, and things are about to be going here. If you're the Steelers, are you still waiting on that Aaron Rodgers thing? And how does that affect you going into the draft in terms of this Aaron Rodgers situation? Is he somebody you wait for? And if he signs way late, do you accept him and just say, oh, yeah, come on, after you've already started off season workouts with Mason Rudolph and maybe potentially a rookie? You know, how does that situation continue to go for the Steelers? And how would you handle it if you're Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin?
Well, here's what I would say is it's fine if they want to wait for him. I don't think there's anything wrong, but there's two trains of thought that you have to take away from that. Number one, I don't think if you're waiting for Aaron Rodgers shouldn't change anything that you do in the
No.
draft. Not
Right.
one iota. Shouldn't change any plans that you have in the draft. Because like you mentioned earlier, Jason, just because you draft a quarterback, even if you draft one in the first round, that doesn't mean that guy has to play
Right.
immediately. So I wouldn't change anything with the draft, regardless of what Aaron Rodgers does.
Amen.
Second train of thought is if Aaron Rodgers signs later after, let's say, OTAs and minicamp, all that stuff, he doesn't come in for any of that, and then the Steelers sign him after that, well, the Steelers aren't serious about winning. And the
No.
reason being is because quarterbacks have to have time to get used to receivers, hand signals that you want to use, just certain things, a feel for guys out there on the field. That's what you do in minicamp. That's
Mm-hmm.
what you do in OTAs. You learn each other. You learn everything. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
development type of stuff. Well, if he's
Yeah.
not going to be there for any of that, well, the Steelers aren't trying to win because
No, and
they're
I
just saying, hey, we'll take this guy no matter what and put
right.
him out there. And hey, let just chips fall where they may. And they're not trying to win.
No, and he's not, I don't think, young enough to do that. I think he has to have that continuity, that work on the complexity part of the whole thing. You got to go out there and have a significant, complex game plan, in my opinion, to will out there a guy that's on the wrong side of 40. I think you need to really be schematically sound. You got to have that teamwork, that ability to gel, no doubt about it. And that's true for all the positions. That's why people want these offensive lines to be great the minute they put these people in there. You gotta play
Yes.
together, man. It takes
Yes.
years. I just don't think people understand that all the time. But with the Steelers doing this and Aaron Rodgers, all this crap. Again, I don't think it changes anything either for the Steelers. If they get him, they get him. But I'm in the same train of thought as you. You can't come in there late in the summer and expect this thing to work. I just don't think it will. I just think it's a travesty to do to this football team. Do you think that he signs here soon? Do you think he comes in? Or do you think he's waiting for the draft, perhaps, maybe, with what the Steelers may do? Do they trade George Pickens? Things like that. Do you think he's just going to wait and to see after draft day and then make that call?
Yep, I'm 100% because he's not coming to Pittsburgh if the Steelers get rid of George Pickens. I can
No,
assure you of that. And I don't blame him. I
no,
wouldn't either if I was in his position. So that's what they're waiting because the Steelers aren't going to trade Pickens after the draft. They're not going
no.
to do that because they're going to want the draft capital for this year. So they're not going to
Right.
do it after the draft. So I think he's just waiting until the draft happens, make sure that Pickens is on the team, and then move forward from there and get this ball rolling. But they're not. I mean, until that happens, nothing's going to happen with Rodgers. Now we get to a week or so after the draft, and it's OTA time, and he doesn't
Right.
want to come in and starts getting mini camp time. Well, then first of all, the Steelers should move on and
Right.
just say, "Hey, man, we waited long enough. You weren't serious about coming here. Thank you, but no thanks."
Right.
At some point, you got to draw a line, and if you're serious about winning, though, Jason,
Yeah.
if you're serious about winning, if you're not, let him come in the week before the first game, and
Yeah.
just throw him out there and figure it out, if that's what you really want to do. Because at this point, it's either do you want to be a, I love what Cam Hayward said. Do you want to be a
Yeah.
Steeler or not? That's
Yeah.
the pitch. Nothing else. Do you want
Yeah.
to or do you not? And if you don't, we understand. But if you do, it's time to get in here and get things rolling. But
Yeah.
another thing is they don't technically have to have them right now.
Right. Yeah. It
They
doesn't
don't.
matter.
They don't. They don't have to have them right now because they're not doing anything right now.
No.
So
No. Nothing. Yeah. I would like to have you though at off-season workouts because team. I think that, we preach that in Pittsburgh. It's all about the team, all about the family. I just feel like you disrupt the apple cart, when you don't have all your guys there. Get them all in. Contract disputes are one thing, but get everybody in there, man. Get that team building early and get this thing rolling, man. Get it rolling
right.
now. But hey, it is what it is. But again, these off-season workouts, they're about to start. The draft's coming up. If you're the Steelers, I wanted to talk about this offensive line since we were doing all this quarterback tough stuff too. While we were just on it, it popped into my head. Broderick Jones moving to left tackle. Isaac Seumalo, that left guard. You got Zach Frazier, who I think is really a stud. You got Mason McCormick, maybe that could maybe grow. We'll see how he continues to grow. But you have now hopefully Troy Fautanu over on that right side. How long do you think it's going to take this young group to grow? And do you think that growth is going to happen this season? Or do you think we're still going to need a couple years? And can Aaron Rodgers even play behind those guys, potentially not being at the top of their game just yet?
Well, the line, I think, is going to take a step forward this year, and it
Yeah.
needs to take a step forward this year. They can't look moving Broderick over to left tackle isn't all of a sudden going to fix Broderick's problems. And a lot of people seem to believe that him going to the left, okay, now he's going to play good. I'm like, well, hold on a second. He played right his rookie year, and he was fine. I'm not saying he was phenomenal, but he was decent. He was pretty good. And he
Right.
took a huge step back last year. So playing the same position. So just moving him to left tackle doesn't guarantee us anything. Now, does it mean that maybe he's a little bit more happy? Maybe he gives a little bit more effort because that was a lot of Broderick's problems last year. It was effort,
Right.
just not giving the effort and then his technique suffered because of all of that. Well, I think he'll be in a better space, playing his
Mhm.
natural position. But I think that the line can gel right now. I mean, they've got time. These guys have played football before. It's not like they haven't played football. They're young,
Right.
but they're also, I mean, the Steelers drafted now McCormick. I'm not going to say they drafted him to play, but he played a hell of a lot last year.
Mhm.
So I expect him because I mean, as we all know, his technique was horrific, and he was
Yeah.
still out there.
Yeah.
But so I love his fire because you can't teach a motor,
No.
and Mason McCormick has a motor. You can't teach that. You can teach him
Mhm.
technique. Do I trust Pat Meyer to do that? It's a different conversation for a different
That-
day.
That's it.
But
Yeah.
I think the offensive line is going to be better just because everybody has been in the league a little bit longer. They
Mhm.
understand how to be a professional. I think they're going to be better.
You were an offensive lineman, weren't you? Is that what you
I
played?
was.
Yeah. How big, from an offensive lineman's perspective, somebody that's done it, how big is that confidence? Once you get beat a little bit, once you start getting in that rut a little bit, how hard is it to get back into the right headspace? And how much does that weigh into your game, once you start going down that road? And, do you think that's what happened to Broderick last year, that head game?
I mean, it's a lot. Here's the thing you think about with an offensive lineman. You could literally dominate your guy. If you play 75 snaps, you could dominate, and I mean dominate him 74 snaps.
Right.
But on one snap, if he beats you, you had a horrible game. That is the
Everybody sees
difference.
it.
That is the offensive line.
Yeah.
So that's just a psyche that you have to get past and understand that mindset.
Mm,
And you also can't let it happen. But yeah, that's what offensive linemen are dealing with. So it's a lot more than what people think as far as mentally, because that is literally the truth. You could pancake your lineman and whoever you're going against 74 snaps out of 75. But if he gets a sack one play, you had a horrible game. So it's
yeah,
tough. It's tough,
no
man.
doubt. I always feel bad coaching and the offensive lineman. Somebody will be like, "Man, he sucked this game," and I'm like, "Buddy, he let up one time, one play. Yeah, it was everybody seeing it. It was bad, but yeah, it was one time. I mean, he
One
played
time,
damn
man. That's
good.
it.
Yeah. Last year we had that a kid. He hits a block in the back. One bad play on the game. It happened to be a block in the back on a touchdown pass. But everybody was riding his ass. I'm like, man, that kid played his heart out. He played great the whole game. But yeah, that's true. That's just what I wondered though with Broderick Jones, because I felt like year one, he came in, he had that fire, he relied a lot on his strength, that brute strength, throwing people around. His technique maybe lacked a little bit. I'm not no offensive line guru, but yeah, it looked like he was a little off with his technique, but still came in and did that. I just don't know where Broderick got broke. That's where I was just wondering, was it the constant flipping back and forth with the position? Because I don't know if that really affects it from an offensive lineman's perspective. Maybe it does. But where do you think Broderick got broke? I don't understand that.
I think it was he didn't beat Dan Moore out for left tackle. I think that's what it is. Because look, they drafted Broderick to be the left tackle. And
Right.
I know Dan Moore said, "Hey, I can't play right tackle. I don't know how to do it. Everything is backwards, yada, yada, yada." The Steelers moved up to draft Broderick Jones to play left tackle. And I don't think he beat him out.
Mm,
And that's where he got broke. He's like, I'm supposed to be better than this guy. Look, the Steelers have watched him play for 3 years. He isn't
right.
very good, and I can't beat him out. Now, whether he had that elbow injury, the arm injury, whatever the case may be, but again, just because you're hurt, that's not an excuse for bad play, and especially not an excuse for bad effort.
No.
But having said all of that, I think that's where it was. Is
Yeah.
that the Steelers? Okay, we're going to have some competition over here at left tackle. Broderick didn't beat him out. Now, it also didn't help that Faetanu got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
When Faetanu got hurt in training camp, that kind of eliminated Broderick Jones being able to play left tackle because, look, if the guy that we think is going to be the right tackle is hurt,
Right.
we can't. I mean, we have to have him, Dan Moore Jr. playing left tackle because he says he can't play right. So what are
Yeah.
we supposed to do? So it sucked. But I
Yeah.
think that's where he got broke.
What do you think about the Titans play or paying Dan Moore Jr. that? Like, I don't know. Yeah, that was crazy to me. I think it was a vast overpay on their part, man.
I mean, more power to him. God bless him for
Yeah.
getting all that money. Good for him. But
Ooh.
we watched him. We
Yeah.
watched him, and somebody, I know that there's reports out there and stuff. Well, he's a 4-year starter, and he is. But we
Yeah.
watched him start for 4 years and play bad football.
Ooh,
So
man.
they can have him. They can have. I mean, he gave up the league high in sacks last year. He gave up 12 sacks.
Yeah.
So
he played good in the front half. I don't know what happened in the back half, but man, he fell off a cliff in the back half.
He did.
No
He
doubt.
did.
It was crazy. All right, guys, we're going to continue through here. Make sure you're double tapping that screen, hitting the like button. Also, guys, put your comments in there. We will get to a lot of them here soon. We're just going to talk about a couple more things. I want to bring up this TJ Watt thing since everybody seems to have it on their mind, all that kind of stuff. It was making headlines about the TJ Watt thing, the post with him throwing up the peace sign. Do you think there's any trouble there? Do you think there's any fire where there maybe we're seeing a little bit of smoke with TJ Watt? And what do you think that may be, if anything?
I mean, obviously we don't know TJ Watt. I know he doesn't usually play games on social media. He doesn't do that. But my thing is, look, I think it's probably a little bit of a ploy. He heard that, that they weren't trying to give him more money or the same amount of money that Myles Garrett. Look, the Steelers got to play a game too. It's a negotiating thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe my thing is, and I said it earlier today on Steelers Almighty, I was like, maybe TJ Watt is like, look, I'm not going to sign an extension with the Steelers. I love the Steelers, but at this point in my career, your quarterback situation's a mess. I haven't won a playoff game. I'll play the last year of my contract if you want me to, but I'm not going to sign an extension with you guys no matter what. I want to take my chances elsewhere. Nobody wants to just say that. And I'll say it because why isn't that true? Nobody wants to believe that somebody would just leave Pittsburgh. And I'm like, yes, they will. They'll leave Pittsburgh. So I think that could be something to that. Do we want that to happen? If they offered him enough money, maybe he would stay. I don't know. But maybe he's just completely checked out, Jason, is like, yeah, I'm sorry. I've been here long enough. It's not getting better. I think it's getting worse. I'm out of here.
Would you pay TJ Watt? I mean, he's over 30 now. I mean, he's had some injuries. I mean, I think he's the best player in the game in my eyes defensively. But with his unwillingness here as of late that we hear, not wanting to move around, would you go out there and maybe see what you can dangle out there and get for him? I mean, is that something you do here in 2025? Or does that immediately knock you out of contention if you get rid of TJ Watt?
Well, the simple fact is the Steelers have been 1-10 without TJ Watt. So they've proven that they don't play well without him. Having said that, the train of thought is the Steelers have basically been trying to rebuild without going into been rebuilding without going into rebuild mode.
Right.
And how you do that is you always keep a good defense. You play good special teams, and then you figure stuff out. The Steelers have been rebuilding. They're trying to find a quarterback. They rebuilt the offensive line. They rebuilt the wide receiver room. I mean, people don't want to say that. Steelers have been rebuilding for the last 5 years. That's what they're doing. They just happen to be competitive while they're doing it, and nobody does it that way, Jason.
No.
So if the Steelers want to trade TJ Watt, that would signal that they are finally ready to say we're in rebuild mode, and then we're going to start this thing over. Can Steeler fans take that? Can they take that? Are they going to be willing to have a 6-win season? Or, because that's what it takes. That's what you see teams doing all the time. They rebuild. They're not any good for a couple years. At least one. At least 1 year. There's that 1 year where they're not good. Are fans going to be okay with that? But my thought is the same fans, Jason, that are going to say we need to rebuild, when they do only win 6 games, they want everybody fired, everybody cut, everybody traded. Well, you can't have it both ways.
No, you got to have a little patience. You got to have, if you understand the assignment, what's going on, you got to have a little bit of a patience, a little bit of
Correct.
patience. What would you think a haul for TJ Watt would be? I think you would probably get a one, or maybe a two. I feel like you would get a one. But I don't know beyond that how much more you get because when this team trades for them, they're going to have to sign him, and they're going to have to pay him $40+ million a year. What do you think a haul for TJ Watt would give the Steelers?
I think it's definitely a first and a third. Well, definitely a first, but maybe a third, maybe a fourth. People are saying, "Oh, you can get a first, second, and a third. You can get
No,
4 picks." I'm like, "No, you can't." I
no,
go, "There's a possibility you could get three,
yeah,
but if you get three, it'd be like a first, a third, and a seventh, or a first and a fourth and a sixth, something like that." So you could get 3 picks, but you're not getting a first this year, a first next year, and a second round this year. You're not getting all that for him, you
no,
know.
no.
So
How do you feel here, Mike? Tom Ford says, Mike Tomlin is the reason the Steelers haven't won anything in the last decade, and he pissed away TJ Watt. Is that your feelings on Mike Tomlin right now with
I
what he's
mean,
had?
look, Mike Tomlin's a head coach, and the Steelers haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. So he obviously has to take some blame for that. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't not blame him.
right.
And he hires the coaches. He does all of those things, So yes, he is to be held responsible. But you're kidding yourself if you think Mike Tomlin is the only person responsible.
No,
You're being crazy if you think that Art Rooney II isn't just as culpable as Mike Tomlin. If for no other reason is that if you think that Mike Tomlin is the problem, why the hell haven't you fired him? That
well,
would be the reason. Look, you can blame Mike Tomlin for everything. Fine. But you have to blame Art Rooney II for everything as well, because he is ultimate. First of all, Art Rooney is way more involved than what he leads on. That's
oh,
number
yeah,
one. But number two, if you're going to hold the coach responsible and he hadn't done anything, why the hell did you give him this extension last year when you didn't have to?
right.
So just keep that in mind, people. You can blame Tomlin. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you have to blame Art Rooney II right up there with him, if not more.
No doubt. I agree. I think Art Rooney has to has to shoulder the blame. And Mike Tomlin, that's what comes with being the head man. You're gonna get
Yes,
the blame. You're gonna, I mean, that's just
correct.
the way it is. And I think Mike handles that well. He deflects a lot of it. I feel like he protects players a good bit, maybe sometimes too much, maybe even sometimes. I don't know. But I think he does a good job at that. And I think it does take a special person to be in the limelight of a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Mike has his pros, his cons. I mean, just like everybody else. So, yeah, it is what it is. All right, guys, make sure you're double tapping that screen, hitting that like button, sending this out into the algorithm. Truly appreciate that. We're going to answer some of your chat questions here now. And do some of that. We'll talk some more about the draft here and answer some more of your questions. Where were we? The problems are number one, Rooney, number two, old GM, number three, Tomlin, and four, the players. How much of effect here, Big B, do you think that Kevin Colbert's tenure has on this football team today? And do you think Omar Khan's doing a good job of digging them out of it?
I mean, again, if you don't think Kevin Colbert had a huge part in this, then you're wrong. I mean, look, I'm one that says that Mike Tomlin signs off on everybody. I'm that person, and he does. But Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Colbert was responsible for picking players too, and they were horrible, absolutely horrible. Now you could say, yes, he drafted two guys that are going to be in the Hall of Fame, Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt. Well, tell me
Right.
somebody else he drafted. Just
Yeah.
give me somebody else that he drafted that was any good. The next
No.
best person that you can think of is that he traded for Mika Fitzpatrick.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it just the Artie Burns's of the world and the baby hands Pickett's. I mean, just down the list. I mean,
Yeah.
just horrible, horrible drafts. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's absolutely responsible for all of that too, man. And you can't overlook it. If you're trying to overlook it, you're crazy.
No, I agree, man. I agree. Daniel Warman says if the offensive coordinator doesn't change his game plans, it's going to be another long season. Why don't the Steelers hold coaches accountable? I think they do. I think the Steelers are a loyal franchise. But that leads into a draft question with what Daniel's saying there. When you're the Steelers, Big B, uh, I don't know. Personally, I'd be looking for how does this player fit? Schematically, are they going to be able to come in and provide an impact? Do they fit our franchise? Are they a good fit? Do you think the Steelers with Arthur Smith? Do you think there's some pieces that he has to have from this draft in terms of guys with certain skill sets with the Steelers? Or do you think just adding DK Metcalf was enough in terms of skill position players? Or do you think there's still some missing pieces that we don't have those skill sets on this roster that Arthur Smith needs in order to be successful?
The thing that Arthur Smith needs is a quarterback.
Yes.
I mean, we look, everything else we can talk about, running back. Running backs, look, I think the position's important, but you can find running backs. They got the receivers. They have a tight end. They got a blocking tight end. Heck, they got two of them. The offensive line, we already talked about, can be better. But you can have all of that. If you don't have a quarterback, none of it matters. I mean, Arthur Smith got fired in Atlanta because he didn't have a quarterback. He made Ryan Tannehill. Now, granted, Derrick Henry was on his football team, but somebody had to right that ship. Somebody had to be in charge, and it was Ryan Tannehill, which as soon as he left Tennessee, he hasn't played a snap again in the National Football League. So, it's things that nature is like he just needs a quarterback, and he's got to play. He does have to play to the guy's strengths on the team, but none of that works without a quarterback. None of it.
Do you think the running backs, when you said running back too, we know the quarterback, we got that for sure, guys. That's a definite that has to be fixed eventually here. But when you glanced over the running back there, I wanted to ask you: is there a guy on this roster that fits that zone run scheme of Arthur Smith? Is Jalen Warren that guy? Or is there somebody in the draft? I know they were talking to Marion Hampton and all those guys. I think they would be more in the market of like a Judkins or a Neal, a Devin Neal, somebody like that. But is there somebody on this roster now, or do they need somebody at the running back position that's more zone run capable, or do they have that?
I mean, Jalen Warren can pretty much do those things. He can do what you're wanting to do, inside, outside run. He can do those things. But the thing is, Jalen Warren's just not an every down back. Jalen Warren is not a guy that you're giving the football to 25 times a game. You're just not. And for people, they want to put him, it's kind of trying to put, a square peg in a round hole. I get that you want Jalen Warren to be the number one guy, but that's not his thing. And if you force it, we know what will happen. We've seen it happen when he starts getting carries or touches above 15, 18. What's he do? He gets hurt and he fumbles the football because he's worn down. Jalen Warren is a change of pace back. That is what he is. And guess what, people? People have been change of pace backs in this league for a long time, and there is nothing wrong with that. But everybody isn't meant to carry the load. That's why they had Najee Harris. Najee Harris and him, they were a good tandem. Najee wasn't explosive. That wasn't his thing. Jalen is. But you can't give Jalen the ball, the number of carries that Najee had. He'd have broken down, and we all know that. So so they got to get a guy in the draft, and there's plenty of guys out there.
Where do you think they take a running back if they do? I think it probably is 4-3, somewhere around there. Do you think a guy like maybe Dylan Sampson, Cam Scatterboo, Devin Neal, somebody like that? Do you think some of those guys are going to be available in that third, fourth round area? Or do you think a lot of these guys are going to get gobbled up pretty quickly?
The thing about it is that I think Scatterboo is one of the more overrated prospects. He was a great college football player, but he almost ran a 4.7. I mean, that's Najee Harris. So why do we need that? We don't need that again. I think like Kalen Johnson, a lot of people were on Kalen Johnson out of Iowa early. I'm not on him either. A Devin Neal out of Kansas, a DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. There's plenty of guys. Dylan Sampson, like you mentioned, there's guys, man. There's guys that are around that are going to be around in that third to fourth round that the Steelers can lean on. That absolutely they can lean on and can be that type of back. And again, maybe they don't even have to be, okay, we're going to give it to him 25 times. Split the carries with Jalen Warren. split the touches. Okay, I'm fine with that. But all
Right.
the but there's plenty of guys out there that they can get in this draft that can do some stuff.
What about some of like I've been thinking about this, and I think that this could maybe be beneficial to the Steelers. A guy that's more of a multi-purpose type guy, a guy that can play in the backfield, like the Chiefs do with some of their wide receivers. That can run the ball, run those sweeps, do the exotic things, like maybe Savion Williams. Where's he from? I think he's from TCU.
TCU.
Yeah, Savion Williams, a guy like him, a guy that can maybe do some different things to provide some dynamic playmakers that are just something a little bit different for defenses to guard. Do you think the Steelers maybe should lean more toward a guy like that, a guy like that can do it all?
I mean, you can do that. I mean, Savion Williams is more. I mean, you could use him as that, but who would you rather have the ball in their hands? George Pickens and DK Metcalf down the
Yes.
field, or somebody like that? That's the whole thing. The Steelers have kind of picked their poison on what they want to do as far as getting the ball to dynamic players. Now, granted,
Mm-hmm.
the more dynamic players you have, the better. There's no doubt about that. But they've already decided, at least up to this point, that, hey, we've got these dynamic wide receivers. Now it's, are you going to use them properly? Because if you're not
Right.
going to use them, then what the hell did you get them for?
Yeah, and even do you add another wide receiver? Would you go maybe add another big tall guy, something like that, or would you stay away from maybe a wide receiver or something like that and just go trenches and do those things? Or do you think adding even more rookies to that wide receiver room? Do you think even something like that might be beneficial for this team, or do you think that's real quarterback dependent or something like that?
Well, if the Steelers take a wide receiver, a taller wide receiver in the first 3 rounds, which, again, a first or a third, and maybe even the fourth, then I don't think they're going to sign George Pickens to
Yeah.
a contract extension. So, because they would be drafting his replacement. Now, if they
Mm-hmm.
don't do that, on the other hand, which there's a lot of people that are saying that you can't pay Pickens. I'm like, well, why the hell can't you? If he has a
Yeah,
good
you
year,
can.
again, the Steelers will have plenty of room, plenty
Mm-hmm.
of cap room, and they're not paying a quarterback. So
Right.
yeah, they can absolutely do it. Look, we've seen this kind of stuff happen before. Not to mention, I mean, there's plenty of teams. Look at the Eagles. The
Yeah.
Eagles are paying everybody. They
I
are
know.
literally paying everybody except their D line. They
Yeah.
just keep drafting D linemen. They just keep turning
Yeah.
those guys over, but they're paying
Yeah.
everybody. So
Yeah.
you can do it. You just have to decide what you want to do.
Right.
And the Steelers at this point, I mean, I'm not opposed, again, to taking a wide receiver. I wouldn't do it at 21.
Right.
I wouldn't do that.
I
But
would
if you
do it
could get
late.
somebody in the third, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, like Dante Thornton Jr. or somebody out of Texas, maybe in like
Yes.
the 7th round or I don't know. I'm just saying, late in the draft, maybe you do that. I don't know. It's very puzzling to me of what they need to do. This draft, I feel like, is a very pivotal draft, and I feel like this draft is going to define a lot for this Pittsburgh Steelers franchise moving forward. In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. But are you putting a lot of stock into this draft? Are you getting a feel of, is this make it or break it for Omar Khan and this Steelers team? Could it, really change things one way or the other?
I don't know. I don't really get a read as of now. I just think the Steelers are going to take a D tackle. I mean, if those guys are there, that's
Right.
where I'm getting my read. If those guys are available, I think they're going to take a D tackle. If not, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. They seem to really like Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
I also heard they like Amarian Hampton too at 21. If he falls, oh my goodness,
I like
just
him.
hate it if they took a. I like you. I think he's the
Yeah.
best back in the draft.
Yeah,
I do.
he's good.
But at 21, I'm just
Right.
diabolically opposed to taking a running back in the first round. I
Najee,
can't do it.
Yeah, Najee scarred me. I don't know why. I don't think Najee was horrible, but man, when we use a first round pick, it's like, damn, I don't know. It just bothers me because I just feel like running back has been devalued a little bit, and it just bothers me a great deal. All right, guys, we'll do a couple comments here real quick, and then we'll let Big B get moving here. I don't want to keep him all night, but I definitely appreciate
I'm going to
you
move
joining
here
us.
because my phone is dying. So,
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get moving.
I'm with you.
All right, we'll get moving here. Mark Malone, we did. He's telling you Johnson has Marcus Allen, Roger Craig to him. Hey, man, yeah, you never know. Some of these guys could really pan out. Need misdirection, play action, crossing patterns on first down. Absolutely, you always do.
Yeah,
That's part of being a pro offense, no doubt.
absolutely.
Get Sanders if available. Get running back in the third round. Could do that, no doubt. Mark Malone, the guys in the middle should eat with DK and GP on the outside. Do you see a big year from these tight ends, Big B? I
I would
think
hope
I
so,
think they
man.
can.
But here's the thing: DK Metcalf goes over the middle of the field too. So they got
Yeah,
to just throw the ball over the middle of the field. They just got to stop with the nonsense. I know the offense doesn't necessarily call for that, but it's got to
right.
start calling for that
Yeah,
and just move on. That's it.
yes,
But yeah, the tight ends can absolutely eat if they do that.
absolutely. Gilbert says change the D to 4-3 and rotate 8 defensive linemen. I don't think people understand this. It's correct me if I'm wrong. Most professional offenses are never in their base set anyway. Yeah, maybe like 5% of the time. I feel like most defenses are in sub packages most of the time. I don't know. I don't feel like some of that stuff really matters a ton. I don't know. What do you think about that? Changing schematics.
I mean, look, the Steelers were in the nickel 58% of the time
Yeah,
last year.
right.
So, that's the whole thing is that we keep talking about they need a nose tackle, and they do because
Yeah.
the part of the problem is the teams used to get the Steelers, they got them in the nickel, and then they ran the ball on them.
Oh yeah.
So it was a problem. So
Right.
I think part of that, the Steelers got to figure some of that out. But I mean, I don't think going to a 4-3 is going to make a difference. I don't think you need to do that.
No, no doubt. Tom Ford says DK Metcalf is as big as a tight end. Absolutely. Here's
Yeah.
my thing too. When you got guys like DK, GP, that's gonna open those things across the middle. Can you see a bigger year from Darnell Washington this year? Because I don't hear a ton of talk about him this offseason. And I think he was somebody that was severely underutilized. In my opinion, I think there's a tremendous amount that he could do for this football team. Do you think maybe Darnell Washington starts to be involved, or maybe he just don't got it? I don't know.
I think he's got it. I think, they've got to give him more opportunities. There was a couple of times, like early in the season, Justin Fields lobbing the ball up to him. He's trying to rifle it in there and fit it
Yeah,
right in. I'm like, no, man, just get it up high enough and give him an opportunity. He's 6'7". He's going against a guy that's 5'11". He can figure it out. And I think they just have to actually use him. If they do that, then I think he's got something. But is he ever going to be like a 40 catch guy a season? No. But I don't think the Steelers need him to be that. But if he absolutely.
amen, man. No doubt. Gilbert says is the problem's the play calling. I seen that comment. I wanted to ask that. Do you think the play calling was due to offensive line instability? What do you think the problem was with the play calling? And do you think that that's a big issue there? Because let's face it, they weren't letting a guy that won a Super Bowl call his own plays in a 2-minute drill. I mean, that's kind of crazy to me. Do you think that there's a major issue there, a major sort of distraction in terms of Arthur Smith, or a big gap between him and Mike Tomlin and what they're trying to do there in terms of faith in their play callers on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was obviously some issues. Russell Wilson had that great game. He was audibling against the Bengals, and then all of a sudden you hear, well, Arthur Smith wasn't happy about it and didn't like it. And what coaches can be, they would rather be right than win. Like,
Right.
whatever. Um, and then it changed. It seemed like the offense changed from then on out. I thought the play calling had a lot to do with the offensive struggles, but you tapped on it. Some of that is offensive line predicated. Like if you want to take a bunch of 7-step drops and play action passes and get guys deep down the field, your offensive line has to hold up. And it
Yeah.
didn't do that a lot of times last year. There were issues, there were
No.
leaks. You can't play action pass and take a 7-step drop when literally guys are just turning the corner immediately on both of our tackles. It's a problem. So, and then you got to leave the tight end to block, and he doesn't get out in the route. It's just, it all starts with the line. And I've said this over and over and over again. If the offensive line just gives,
Right.
if they give them average play, the Steelers.
Amen, man. No doubt. All right, guys, we touched on a lot of stuff, so thank you so much. Big B, tell everybody what's going on over Steelers Almighty. If people aren't watching now or you're just joining, you'll be able to watch it when it uploads. But tell us what's going on over Steelers Almighty, so people, if they haven't already found you, how they could go and check you out and what they could, what you got going on.
I appreciate it, man. A lot of stuff going on at Steelers Almighty. We're putting out videos. We seem to be doing something every day. Even on the weekends, I like to pop on and do little town halls with everybody. So we got stuff going on. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you come over and subscribe to us. We appreciate it. We're going to figure out this draft show. I still don't know exactly what we're doing, Jason. I don't know. We're going to do something. I know I'm going to be live with it. We're going to stream, but we're still trying to put together exactly what is going on, but we'll get it figured out. So,
hey, make it big, baby. Make it big. Do it up.
Absolutely.
No doubt. I appreciate it, man. I love your channel too. So you guys make sure you do go over and show the Steelers Almighty channel some love, and make sure you're subscribing and all that. And continue to support your creators. So continue to grow. So thank you, man. I appreciate it. And we'll link up again here before too long, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow on Steel City Live here on Mike Drop Sports. I'm Jason. That's Big B from Steelers Almighty. And we'll catch you later, man. Thank you. See you guys. Peace.